about being asked the questions is I know what questions I'm going to get. I know that she's going to ask me, where are you from, what do you do you have any brothers or sisters, what kind of music do you like, all these like random array of questions. And because I know them, because I've seen them before, it's like if someone gave you the answers for the test ahead of time, you know the answers, right? It's very, very, very easy to play that way. And also, because she's asking you the questions, you can say things that are really good about yourself, and it's not bragging, okay? If you go in and you tell her all the cool things about you, you're bragging, you're tryhard. If you sit back and she asks you the questions and you then divulge, you know, especially even if you're like hesitant or like bashful about some of your accomplishments as you're forced to divulge, it looks like you weren't trying to be impressive at all. It's just everything about you so impressive you just couldn't help it. Okay, so that's the vibe you really want to go with. So for all those reasons, I like to go a little bit like low-key at the start of the day, and I really don't try hard at all at the start. I'm normal, I'm cool, I talk, but I'm not trying for anything in terms of pushing it physically or romantically. I'm not going to like invest a lot. I'm going to try and get her to invest more than I am at any given time. So a lot of my dates kind of like they start off looking a little bit lame, but they lead to sex. So it's kind of what you want. So now you're on the date, you're talking, she's investing, it's going back and forth, you're saying good things about yourself. You still need to, so that's great, she thinks you're cool. But there's a difference between the guy that's cool and the guy that sleeps with her. And that difference is escalation and logistics, right? So it's, do you escalate the conversation to a man-to-woman interaction? And then also, do you actually get her to a place where sex can happen? So let's talk about escalation first. First of all, escalation, in my mind, is not just physical. Okay, there are 4 ways to escalate. You can escalate physically, meaning you start touching her more, she starts touching you more, which is great. But actually, in a public place, I don't do it a lot. I do it a little bit sparingly nowadays. Although, again, if you're uncomfortable with it, do it a lot until you become comfortable with it. Secondly, you have logistical escalation, moving her from place to place, and then eventually to your place. And it is important to move to other places first, because it just gets her comfortable moving around with you, and it makes it seem like there's less of an agenda and more of an adventure. But moving her around, especially moving her around in places that are getting closer to a place you can have sex, is a very good form of escalation, maybe the best even. And then finally, you have verbal escalation, and I really break that into 2 categories. So one type of verbal escalation is talking about more and more sexual topics. So if you're talking about the weather, then that's, you know, not very sexual. If you're talking about like her hopes and dreams, that's a little more intimate, but it's still not sexual. If you start talking about weird sexual experiences you've had, that's clearly very, very sexual. So there's this escalation of topics. And within that, topics related to sex are really good that are non-sexual. For example, drugs and alcohol are related to sex but non-sexual. Tattoos related to sex, piercings, that kind of stuff. Partying, taking risks, adventures, travel. All these kind of things, these exploratory kind of experiential things, are related to sex but not sex. They're great gateways to sex. You can change the conversational topic to more sexual, and that's a great sort of implicit way to escalate things. And the final way that you can escalate, the 4th one, which is also verbal, is the nature of the conversation between you and her. So if you're talking about small talk, that's not about you and her at all. If you're talking about yourself, that's about you and her a little bit, but it's not really like super relevant to her, and it's not like going deep. If you talk about her, that's more relevant to her and a little more risky in general. But where you eventually want to go is to we. Talking about you and her together, using the word we or us or that kind of stuff. And that's where you're cementing this bond that you 2 are together. And she starts responding we and us as well. Now you know that you've created an item there. All right, so the escalation is small.